The morning sun painted the rocky hills of Kepler 442b in shades of gold and red. Janae lay flat on her stomach behind a large boulder, her rifle steady in her hands. Through the scope, she could see the alien convoy moving slowly through the valley below. 12 large vehicles carried enough energy cores to power enemy weapons for months. She had been waiting for 3 hours. Her body was perfectly still, breathing slow and controlled. This was what she lived for, the perfect shot that could change everything. Beside her, Hyunwoo pressed his eye to a smaller scope. He was her spotter, her eyes and ears. They had grown up together on Earth, trained together, and fought together for 5 years. He knew her thoughts before she spoke them. "Wind is calm," he whispered into their private radio link. "Distance to lead vehicle is 800 meters. Target is clear." Ginny smiled slightly. 800 meters was an easy shot for her. She had made kills at twice that distance. The enemy soldiers walking beside the vehicles looked relaxed. They had no idea death was watching them from above. "Power coupling is visible on the lead transport," Hyunwoo continued. "One shot there will disable their shields and communications." Jinae moved her scope to find the target. There it was, a small metal box on the side of the first vehicle. If she hit it just right, the explosion would stop the entire convoy. Then human forces could capture all those energy cores. She had destroyed 17 enemy supply runs in the past year. The aliens called her the Ghost of Kepler. They feared her name but could never find her. She struck without warning and vanished like smoke. The rifle felt comfortable in her hands. It was a weapon designed by humans for humans. Not as powerful as alien plasma guns, but far more accurate. Humans had learned long ago that precision mattered more than raw power. Ginny controlled her breathing. In and out, slow and steady. Her finger found the trigger. The crosshairs settled on the power coupling. She began to apply pressure, ready to take the shot that would cripple another enemy operation. Then cold metal pressed against her spine. "Drop it." The words were whispered in perfect Korean. Jinae's blood turned to ice. Someone was behind her with a gun. Someone who spoke her language. Someone who had gotten close enough to touch her without making a sound. She recognized the voice immediately. It was Dong-ho, their intelligence officer. The man who had joined their unit 6 months ago. The man who ate meals with them and shared stories about his family back on Earth. The man who knew all their mission plans. "You have 3 seconds. Dong-ho continued in that same whisper. "Drop the rifle and step back slowly. If you do anything else, I will alert the convoy below." Jinae's mind raced. How had he found their position? How long had he been watching them? More importantly, how long had he been working for the enemy? 6 months of failed missions suddenly made terrible sense. Through her scope, she could still see the convoy moving through the valley. The aliens had no idea their most dangerous human enemy was being held at gunpoint by one of her own people, or someone she had thought was one of her own people. "Hyunwoo," she whispered through their private link, using their code for immediate danger. "Contact down." Her spotter's body tensed almost invisibly, but he kept watching the convoy. Now he knew something was wrong. Now he would be ready to act. "Turn around slowly," Dong-ho ordered. "Keep your hands visible. The Vorthak High Command wants to meet the famous Ghost of Kepler." Vorthak. That was what the aliens called themselves. Jinae had killed so many of them she had stopped counting. But she had never expected to be betrayed by someone wearing a human face. "How long have you been working for them?" she asked, buying time while her mind calculated options. The gun pressed against her back was definitely Vorthak technology. She could tell by the high-pitched whine of the charging capacitor. "Since the beginning," Dong-ho replied. "Your species is so trusting. You never suspected that someone who shared your food and spoke your language might not be human at all. Not human at all." The words hit Jinae like a physical blow. Dong-ho was not a traitor. He was something else entirely. Something wearing a human shape. "You see, we Vorthak have been studying your kind for many years," he continued. "We learned your languages, your customs, your weaknesses. It was simple to place agents among your forces. Shapeshifters." Jinae had heard rumors but never believed them. The idea that aliens could take human form seemed impossible. But the evidence was pressing against her spine. Through their link, Hyunwoo fed her information without speaking. The convoy had stopped. Guards were getting out of the vehicles. Someone was scanning the hills with electronic equipment. They knew human snipers were in the area. "You have killed many of my people," the thing wearing Dong-ho's face said. 17 supply runs destroyed. Over 300 Vorthak soldiers dead. The High Command considers you their greatest threat. Good, Jin'ei replied. I would hate to think I was wasting my time. She felt rather than saw the alien's anger. The gun pressed harder against her back. But anger made people stupid. Even alien people. You will come with me, he said. You will be studied. We will learn how humans fight so we can better defeat them. Jin'ei almost laughed. These aliens had been watching humans for years and still did not understand them. They thought studying her would give them some secret to human warfare. They had no idea that the secret was simple. Humans never gave up. I have one question, she said. You are not in a position to ask questions. How many of you are there? How many shapeshifters have you placed among us? There was a pause. Then something that might have been pride entered the alien's voice. Enough. We have agents in every human military unit. Every government, every colony. This war was over before it began. Jin'ei smiled. The alien had just made a fatal mistake. He had told her something useful. Information that could save human lives. Information that could change the course of the war. If she lived long enough to share it. Turn around, the alien commanded again. Jin'ei began to turn slowly, her hands visible as ordered. But her mind was working frantically. Hyunwoo was still in position. The alien thought he had caught both snipers, but he was wrong. Her partner was free to act. As she turned, she got her first clear look at the thing wearing Dongho's face. It looked exactly like the man she had known for months. Same height, same build, same facial features. But something was wrong with the eyes. They were too cold, too calculating. No human looked at another human with such complete detachment. The great ghost of Kepler, the alien said with satisfaction. You are smaller than our intelligence suggested. Size does not matter, Jin'ei replied. Results matter, indeed. And the result here is your capture. Jin'ei shook her head slowly. No, the result here is that you made a mistake. What mistake? You assumed I came alone. The plasma bolt came from Hyunwoo's position 200 meters away. It struck the alien in the shoulder, spinning him around and away from Jin'ei. She dove for her rifle as he stumbled, rolling across the rocky ground and coming up with the weapon in her hands. The alien was fast, faster than any human could be. His return shot grazed her left arm as she moved, burning through her uniform and scorching flesh. But she had her rifle now and range and all the advantages that came with being human. Impossible, the alien hissed, his disguise beginning to slip. His skin was taking on a grayish color, his features becoming more angular. Humans cannot recover from ambush situations. Our tactical models prove it. Your models are wrong, Jin'ei replied, switching the rifle to her right hand despite the injury to her left arm. You study our biology, but you never bothered to learn about our spirit. She put her first shot through the convoy's communication array. The explosion sent alien soldiers scrambling for cover as their carefully planned operation turned into chaos. This is not how warfare is conducted, the alien protested, firing wildly as Jin'ei rolled to a new position. This is not your kind of warfare, she corrected, putting her second shot through the lead vehicle's power core. This is human warfare. We do not fight to win cleanly. We fight to win at all costs. The explosion rocked the valley as the transport's energy cores went critical. Alien soldiers ran in all directions, their ordered formations collapsing into panic. None of them had expected the supply run to turn into a battle. Hyunwoo had moved to a new firing position and was systematically destroying communication equipment. Every shot cut the aliens off further from their command structure. Jin'ei continued her demonstration of human unpredictability. Instead of targeting the aliens directly, she began destroying their equipment in random order. Cooling units, power supplies, even personal gear carried by individual soldiers. Each shot served no obvious tactical purpose but created maximum psychological impact. The aliens had trained to fight logical enemies. They expected efficient, predictable tactics. Instead, they found themselves facing something they had never encountered before. Pure human chaos. You fight like animals, the shapeshifter snarled, trying to reach a working communication device. Jin'ei's next shot destroyed the device before he could touch it. We fight like survivors, she replied. You would not understand the difference. The plasma burn on Jin'ei's arm throbbed with every heartbeat, but she ignored the pain. Pain was just information, and right now she needed to focus on more important data, like the fact that a shape-shifting alien had been living among them for 6 months. The alien wearing Dong Ho's face stumbled backward, green blood flowing from the wound in his shoulder. His human disguise was failing rapidly now. His skin had turned completely gray and his eyes had become large and black like a deep-sea creature. "You cannot win this battle," the alien said, his voice no longer sounding human. It carried strange harmonic tones that hurt Jin'e's ears. "The convoy carries 40 soldiers. You are only 2. 2 humans," Jin'e corrected, putting another shot through a transport's engine core. "That makes the odds about even." The explosion sent more alien soldiers diving for cover. They were trained fighters, but their training had not prepared them for enemies who acted without logic or pattern. Human warfare confused them. Through their private communication link, Hyunwoo fed her constant updates. He had moved to higher ground and could see the entire battle area. His voice was calm despite the chaos around them. 12 hostiles moving up the east slope, he reported. 8 more trying to flank us from the west. Main group is staying with the vehicles. Jin'e processed this information while reloading her rifle. The aliens were using standard military tactics. Pincer movement designed to trap the enemy between 2 advancing forces. It was logical, efficient, and completely predictable. "They are trying to surround us," she told Hyunwoo through their link. "I see it. Want me to discourage the Eastern group?" "No. Let them come. I want to show our friend here something interesting about human psychology." The shapeshifter heard her words and his large black eyes grew wider. "What are you planning?" Jin'e smiled at him. It was not a pleasant smile. "I am going to teach you why your people should never have started this war." She stood up from behind her cover and began walking toward the advancing Eastern group. This was exactly the wrong thing to do according to every military manual ever written. When outnumbered, you took cover and fought defensively. You did not walk toward superior enemy forces. She has lost her mind. The shapeshifter whispered in amazement. But Jin'e knew exactly what she was doing. She was counting on the aliens to react logically to her seemingly insane behavior. They would assume she had some hidden advantage they could not see. They would hesitate, wondering what trap they were walking into. The Eastern group stopped their advance. She could see them through her scope, crouched behind rocks and looking confused. Their leader was probably trying to figure out why a human sniper would abandon good cover to walk into the open. "Fear," Jin'e explained to the wounded alien as she continued walking. "Your people understand fear as a logical response to superior force. But humans learn to use fear as a weapon." She raised her rifle and put a shot between 2 alien soldiers. Not at them, but between them. Close enough to send rock fragments flying. Close enough to let them know she could have killed them both if she wanted to. The aliens pressed themselves flatter against their cover. They were elite soldiers, but they had never faced an enemy who seemed to have no concern for personal safety. Hyunwoo, Western Group status. They stopped moving too. "They are trying to figure out what you are doing." "Good. Confusion is a useful emotion in enemies." Jin'e put her next shot through a piece of equipment one of the Western soldiers was carrying. She was not trying to kill them. She was trying to make them afraid. Afraid of an enemy who could hit anything she wanted from impossible distances. The shapeshifter was watching her with something approaching fascination. "This is not standard human tactical doctrine." "There is no standard human tactical doctrine," Jin'e replied. "That is why your intelligence reports are worthless. Every human fights differently." She demonstrated by doing something completely unexpected. Instead of continuing toward either group of enemies, she sat down cross-legged in the open and began cleaning her rifle. As if she had all the time in the world. As if dozens of alien soldiers were not trying to kill her. The effect on the aliens was immediate. Both advancing groups stopped completely. They could see her clearly, but no one fired. They were waiting for the trap to reveal itself. "Your soldiers are paralyzed," Jin'e observed. "They cannot understand an enemy who acts without apparent logic." "Neither can I," the shapeshifter admitted. "That is your weakness. You try to understand us like you would understand a machine, input, processing, output. But humans do not work that way." She finished cleaning her rifle with calm precision. Then she stood up and began walking back toward her original position, still completely exposed. Still an easy target for 40 alien soldiers, but no one shot at her. "We work on controlled chaos," she continued as she walked. "Every human is trained to be unpredictable. It is how we survived on Earth when everything was trying to kill us." The shapeshifter tried to process this information. "Your homeworld was hostile. Ice ages that lasted thousands of years. volcanic explosions that blocked out the sun, asteroids that wiped out most life on the planet, diseases that killed 90% of our population. Janae's voice was matter-of-fact, and somehow every time, enough humans survived to rebuild civilization. Impossible. No. Improbable. There is a difference. She reached her original position and took cover behind the boulder again. We learned to adapt faster than our environment could kill us. Hyunwoo's voice came through their link. Both groups are retreating to the vehicles. I think you broke their brains. The shapeshifter was staring at Janae with new understanding. The other species in our empire evolved on stable worlds. Their survival strategies emphasize efficiency and predictability, which makes them vulnerable to humans, Jeannie concluded. You want to know why you are losing this war. It is not our technology or our numbers. We are the only species that evolved chaos as a survival trait. A new voice crackled through their emergency communication channel. Commander Somin's voice was tight with concern. Janae, Hyunwoo, report status. We are reading massive energy signatures from your position. Package delivered early, Janae responded, putting a shot through another transport's power core. Customer satisfaction guaranteed. The explosion lit up the valley. The remaining alien soldiers were completely demoralized now. Their perfect ambush had turned into a nightmare of burning vehicles and impossible shots from an enemy who seemed to appear and disappear at will. Somin, we have a situation here, Janae continued. Our intelligence officer is not who we thought he was. Explain. Dongho is a Vorthak shapeshifter. He has been feeding information to the enemy for 6 months. Silence on the radio. Then Somin's voice came back harder than steel. Understood. Secure the prisoner. We are sending backup. The shapeshifter laughed, a sound like grinding metal. You think capturing me will help you? I am only one of hundreds placed among your forces. Maybe, Janae agreed. But you are the one who made a mistake today. What mistake? You revealed yourself to us. Now we know what to look for. She put her final shot through the last functional transport. The aliens were stranded now, cut off from support and surrounded by the wreckage of their supply run. Hyunwoo, begin prisoner collection protocol. Stun rounds only. I want to talk to these soldiers, copy that. Should I call for medical support? Janae looked at the burn on her arm. The pain was getting worse, but the wound was not serious. Negative. I have questions that cannot wait. She turned back to the shapeshifter. His disguise was completely gone now. He looked like a tall, thin humanoid with gray skin and oversized eyes. Nothing like the friendly intelligence officer who had shared meals with them. You studied us for years, she said, but you never understood the most important thing about humans, which is, we get angry when our friends betray us. And angry humans are the most dangerous creatures in the galaxy. The shapeshifter looked at the burning convoy, at the demoralized alien soldiers, at the human sniper who had turned a perfect ambush into a complete disaster. Yes, he said quietly, I am beginning to understand that. The plasma burn on Janae's arm made switching her rifle to her left hand necessary. Most snipers would consider this a serious disadvantage. Janae considered it an opportunity to teach the aliens something new about human capability. She adjusted her grip and took aim at a communication relay the aliens were trying to repair. Her first left-handed shot destroyed it completely, sending sparks flying across the valley floor. The shapeshifter stared at her in disbelief. Impossible. Humans cannot maintain accuracy with their non-dominant limbs. Our biological studies confirm this. Your studies are incomplete, Janae replied, putting her next shot through a power coupling 200 meters away. You observed what humans normally do. You never tested what humans can do when forced to adapt. The remaining alien soldiers were trying to establish some kind of defensive formation around their disabled vehicles. They moved with military precision, taking positions that would be effective against normal enemies. But Janae was not a normal enemy. Through their communication link, Hyunwoo provided tactical updates. 23 hostiles still active. They are trying to create overlapping fields of fire around the convoy. Standard defensive doctrine, Janae observed. Textbook formations designed for maximum efficiency. Should I disrupt their positioning? No. Let them organize themselves. I want to show them why human warfare is different from everything else in the galaxy. She began what she would later call her demonstration. Instead of targeting the alien soldiers directly, she started shooting at seemingly random objects around their position. A piece of equipment here, a rock formation there. even small items that individual soldiers were carrying. The aliens could not understand what she was trying to accomplish. Each shot served no apparent tactical purpose. She was not trying to kill them or even wound them. She was just destroying things in no particular order. "What is your objective?" the shapeshifter asked, watching the display with growing confusion. "Psychology," Ginny answered. "Putting a shot through one soldier's water container. Your people fight like machines. Logical, predictable, efficient. But humans fight like chaos itself." To prove her point, she targeted the cooling unit on one of the vehicles, not because it was tactically important, but because its destruction would make loud noise and bright sparks. The explosion sent alien soldiers diving for cover even though they were not in any real danger. "You are wasting ammunition," the shapeshifter protested. "I am investing ammunition in psychological warfare," Janae corrected. "Every shot makes your soldiers question what I will target next. They cannot predict my actions because I am not following any logical pattern." She demonstrated by shooting at a small metal object one of the soldiers was using as cover. The ricochet sent the object flying into the air with a loud clang. The soldier scrambled to find new cover, thinking he had barely escaped death. In reality, Jin A could have killed him easily if she wanted to. But death was not her goal right now. Fear was much more useful than death. "This is not how warfare is conducted," the shapeshifter said, his voice carrying genuine distress. "There are rules, protocols, established methods for military engagement. Those are your rules." Hyunwoo's voice came through the external communication channel. He had hacked into the alien frequency. "Human warfare has only one rule. Win by any means necessary." Jinne smiled at her partner's timing. He was providing covering fire now, but not in the way the aliens expected. Instead of targeting their positions, he was destroying equipment they were not even using. Spare weapons, backup power supplies, even personal items scattered around the battle area. The psychological effect was devastating. The alien soldiers found themselves in a battle where the rules made no sense. Their enemies could hit anything they wanted but seemed to choose targets at random. Every piece of equipment became a potential source of danger. "Your training prepared you to fight logical enemies," Jinne explained to the shapeshifter while reloading her rifle. "Species that attack military targets in predictable sequences. Food supplies, then weapons, then communication, then personnel. Standard siege doctrine." She put her next shot through a decorative element on one of the vehicles. It had no military value whatsoever, but its destruction created a shower of pretty sparks that made the alien soldiers flinch. But humans do not follow standard siege doctrine. We learned our warfare on a planet that tried to kill us in random ways. Ice storms, earthquakes, volcanic explosions, meteor impacts. Disasters that followed no logical pattern. The aliens were becoming visibly agitated now. Their formations were breaking down as soldiers began second-guessing every piece of equipment around them. Nothing felt safe when enemies could destroy anything they could see. "So we learned to fight the same way," Jinne continued. "Random, unpredictable, impossible to counter with logical thinking." Commander Somin's voice crackled through their emergency channel. "Jinne, Hyunwoo, backup is 30 minutes out. Can you maintain your position?" "Negative, Commander. We will not be maintaining our position." "Explain." "We will be advancing to secure additional prisoners for interrogation." Silence on the radio. Then Somin's voice came back, tight with concern. "Jinne, you are outnumbered 20-2. "Yes, Commander. The aliens have us badly outnumbered." Jinne stood up from behind her cover and began walking toward the alien defensive positions. Again, this was exactly the wrong tactical decision according to every military manual. When facing superior numbers, you stayed in cover and fought defensively. But Jinne was not fighting by the manual. The alien soldiers saw her approaching and raised their weapons. But none of them fired. They were waiting for the trap, the hidden advantage, the secret weapon that would explain why a human sniper was walking directly into their crossfire. "She is insane," the shapeshifter whispered. "She is human," Hyunwoo replied through the communication channel. "There is a difference, but most aliens cannot tell what it is." Jinne continued walking toward the 23 armed soldiers. Her rifle was ready but not aimed at any specific target. She moved with calm confidence, as if she were taking a stroll through a peaceful park instead of advancing into enemy fire. "Attention, Vorthak soldiers," she called out in their own language, speaking words the shapeshifter had taught them during intelligence briefings. "You have two choices. Surrender now, or discover why humans are considered the most dangerous species in known space. The aliens looked at each other in confusion. One human was offering 23 armed soldiers a chance to surrender. It was so absurd that none of them knew how to respond. "You cannot be serious," their squad leader finally called back. "I am completely serious," Janae replied, still walking toward them. "But I will understand if you need to discuss it among yourselves." She sat down cross-legged about 50 meters from their position. Still in the open, still an easy target, still acting as if she had all the advantages in this fight. "Hyunwoo, what do you see?" "Confusion, mostly. Half of them are aiming at you. Half are scanning for hidden threats. No one wants to be the first to shoot." "Good. Confusion is useful." The alien squad leader was talking rapidly to his soldiers. Janae could not hear the words, but she could guess the content. He was probably trying to figure out what trap he was missing. Why would one human challenge 23 aliens unless she had some overwhelming advantage? "You see," Ginny explained to the shapeshifter, her voice carrying clearly across the battlefield. "Your people assume that everyone thinks like you do. Logically, rationally, predictably. So when faced with illogical behavior, you become paralyzed trying to figure out the logical explanation." "There must be a logical explanation," the shapeshifter insisted. "There is," Janae agreed. "I am betting that your soldiers are too confused to shoot effectively. And I am betting that Hyunwoo can eliminate most of them while they are focused on me." The first shot came from Hyunwoo's position, disabling the squad leader's weapon. The second shot destroyed the communication equipment another soldier was reaching for. The third shot eliminated their heavy weapons platform. By the time the alien soldiers realized they had been outmaneuvered by human psychology, it was too late. Their weapons were disabled, their leadership was scattered, and their enemy was still sitting calmly in the open as if nothing had happened. "Surrender is still an option," Ginny called out, "but the offer will not remain open much longer." 23 alien soldiers looked at their disabled weapons, at their burning vehicles, at the human sniper who had just taught them a lesson in unpredictable warfare. Then one by one they began putting their hands in the air. "This is impossible," the shapeshifter said weakly. "No," Janae replied, standing up and brushing dust from her uniform. "This is human." The medical facility smelled of antiseptic and burned metal. Janae sat on a simple bed while a human medic cleaned the plasma burn on her arm. The wound was not serious, but it would leave a scar. Another mark to add to her collection. Across the room, the shapeshifter sat in energy restraints that glowed blue around his wrists and ankles. He had given his real name as K1, though he admitted it was probably unpronounceable by human tongues. His gray skin had returned to its natural color, and his large black eyes watched everything with alien intelligence. "Your commanders will execute me," he said matter-of-factly. "Probably," Janae agreed, wincing as the medic applied healing gel to her burn. "Unless you make yourself useful." 23 Vorthak prisoners sat in the facility's holding area under heavy guard. They had surrendered without firing another shot, after witnessing Janae's demonstration of human unpredictability. Most looked confused and defeated. A few stared at her with something approaching fear. Hyunwoo entered the medical area carrying 2 cups of coffee and a data pad. He handed 1 cup to Janae and kept the other for himself. The coffee was terrible, but it was human terrible, which somehow made it taste better. "Commander Somin wants a full debrief in 1 hour, he reported. "The intelligence people are very excited about our prisoners." "They should be," Janae replied, sipping her coffee. 24 Vorthak soldiers and 1 shapeshifter is the largest capture in the war so far. K1 listened to their conversation with obvious interest. "I have been studying your species for 7 of your years. I believed I understood human warfare, human psychology. But today you fought in ways that defied every tactical model we have developed. That is because you were trying to understand us like you would understand a machine," Hyunwoo said, settling into a chair beside Janae's bed. "Input, processing, output. Humans do not work that way." "Then how do you work?" Janae studied the alien who had lived among them for 6 months. He had shared their food, laughed at their jokes, even showed concern when human soldiers were injured. All of it had been an act, but it had been a convincing act. "We work on controlled chaos," she explained. "Every human is trained to be unpredictable, to think outside established patterns. It is how we survived on a world that tried to kill us for thousands of years. Your homeworld was hostile, ice ages that lasted millennia," Hyunwoo listed. supervolcanoes that blocked out the sun for decades, asteroid impacts that wiped out most life on the planet, plagues that killed 90% of the population. And somehow, every time enough humans survived to rebuild, Jine continued, we learned to adapt faster than our environment could kill us. K1 processed this information slowly. His alien features made it hard to read his expressions, but he seemed genuinely troubled by what he was learning. The other species in our empire evolved on stable worlds, he said finally. Their survival strategies emphasize efficiency and predictability, which makes them vulnerable to humans, Ginny concluded. You want to know why you are losing this war? It is not our technology or our numbers. We are the only species that evolved chaos as a survival trait. The alien was quiet for several minutes. When he spoke again, his voice carried a new tone. Not the confidence of a superior being studying primitive creatures, but the uncertainty of someone whose entire worldview had been shattered. We made contact with 17 different species before we encountered humans. All of them fought in predictable patterns. We developed mathematical models that could calculate the outcome of any battle before it began. Mathematics work well against logical enemies, Hyunwoo agreed, but humans specialize in making mathematics irrelevant. Commander So-min entered the medical facility before K-won could respond. She was a tall woman with graying hair and the kind of steady gaze that came from years of military command. Behind her walked Captain Kiho, the colonial intelligence chief. Janae, Hyunwoo, So-min said with a slight smile. Outstanding work today. The convoy you destroyed was carrying enough energy cores to power Vorthak weapons for 6 months. Thank you, Commander, Janae replied. But we have a bigger problem than one convoy. The shapeshifter infiltration, Kiho said, consulting his datapad. We have been analyzing the intelligence you gathered. If this creature is telling the truth about hundreds of agents among our forces, we may need to reconsider our entire security structure. K-won looked up at the human officers. I have told you nothing but truth since my capture. Lies serve no purpose now. Why should we believe anything you say? So-min asked. Because I am no longer certain my people can win this war. The statement hung in the air like a physical presence. Here was a member of an alien empire that controlled dozens of star systems, admitting that humans might be too dangerous to defeat. Explain, Kiho demanded. K1 gestured as much as his restraints would allow. Today I watched 2 humans defeat 43 Vorthak soldiers using tactics that should not exist. You did not fight to capture territory or destroy resources. You fought to create confusion and fear. Effective tactics, So-min observed. Impossible tactics, K1 corrected. No species fights that way. No species wins battles by acting illogically. Yet here you are, victorious, while my people sit in your prison wondering what happened to their carefully planned operation. Jin-A set down her coffee cup and leaned forward. You said your empire has contacted 17 species. Did any of them evolve on hostile worlds like Earth? None. Most evolved on worlds with stable climates and predictable environments. Their development followed logical patterns toward efficiency and order. That is your weakness, Hyunwoo said. You have never encountered a species that learned to thrive in chaos. Captain Kiho was taking notes on his datapad. This information could change our strategic planning. If the entire Vorthak Empire is built on predictable species using logical tactics, we may have more advantages than we realized. Commander So-min nodded slowly. But first we need to deal with the infiltration problem. How do we identify shapeshifters who have been living among us for months or years? You cannot, K1 said. Our biological mimicry is perfect. We copy not just appearance, but behavior patterns, speech habits, even emotional responses. Perfect mimicry, Jin-A repeated thoughtfully, but not perfect understanding. What do you mean? You copied Dong-Ho's appearance and mannerisms perfectly, but you never understood what it meant to be human. When you held a gun to my back, you expected me to surrender logically. You could not comprehend that humans might choose to fight even when the odds were hopeless. K1 considered this. You are saying that our infiltrators will reveal themselves through behavioral errors. I am saying that you can learn to act human, but you cannot learn to think human. Not really. Your minds are too organized, too logical. When faced with chaos, you will always try to find patterns and order. Commander So-min looked intrigued. Are you suggesting we can create tests to identify infiltrators? I am suggesting we can create situations where infiltrators will react differently than real humans. Situations that require embracing chaos instead of fighting it. Captain Kehoe was writing rapidly now. We could design scenarios that force people to make irrational but human choices. Anyone who consistently chooses the logical option might be an infiltrator. It is not foolproof, Jin'ei admitted. Some humans are naturally more logical than others, but it might help us identify the most dangerous infiltrators. Hyunwoo finished his coffee and set the cup aside. There is another problem. If K1 is telling the truth about hundreds of infiltrators, some of them must be in important positions. Command staff, intelligence officers, maybe even government officials. The implications are staggering, Somin agreed. We may need to question everyone with access to classified information. K1 watched the humans discuss security measures with apparent fascination. You are planning to test your entire military structure based on the testimony of an enemy prisoner. We are planning to survive, Jin'ei corrected. That is what humans do. We adapt to new threats faster than the threats can evolve to counter us, even if it means doubting everyone you trust. Especially then, trust is a luxury we cannot afford when shapeshifters walk among us. The alien was quiet for a long moment. Then he asked the question that had been troubling him since his capture. How do you live with such constant uncertainty? Never knowing who to trust, always preparing for betrayal. Jin'ei looked at her wounded arm, at her partner who had saved her life, at the commanders who were already planning new defensive measures, the same way we lived with ice ages and volcanoes and plagues. We accept that the universe is dangerous and we make ourselves more dangerous in response. But does it not exhaust you? This constant vigilance. It keeps us alive, Hyunwoo replied, and sometimes that is enough. 3 months later, Jin'ei lay flat on her stomach in the crystal forests of Vorthak Prime. The alien trees around her glowed with soft blue light, creating an otherworldly landscape that would have been beautiful under different circumstances. But she was not here for sightseeing. Through her rifle scope, she could see the Imperial Command Complex rising like a mountain of black metal and glowing crystal. Inside that building, the Vorthak Supreme Council was meeting an emergency session. Their perfect war had become a nightmare of confusion and impossible human behavior. Target acquired, she whispered into her communication device. Imperial communication array is visible on the central tower. Hyunwoo's voice came back through their private channel. Confirmed. Range is 400 meters. Wind is negligible. You have a clean shot. Around the galaxy, the largest evacuation in human history had been completed just hours before the Vorthak fleets arrived at the 17 target worlds. 53 million humans had vanished from their colonies, leaving behind only automated systems running on preset schedules. The Vorthak forces had found empty cities where lights still turned on and off according to normal patterns. Transportation systems moved without passengers. Communication arrays broadcast recorded messages to create the illusion that life continued as usual. For 6 hours, the alien commanders had waited for human defenders who never appeared. They had scanned empty buildings and searched vacant streets, looking for the trap that had to be waiting for them. No species simply abandoned 17 worlds without a fight, but humans had done exactly that. Movement in the command tower, Hyunwoo reported. High-value targets confirmed in the main conference room. Through her scope, Jin'ei could see alien figures moving behind the tower's crystal windows. The Supreme Council was in full session, trying to understand how 17 human colonies had become ghost towns overnight. She knew what they were discussing because K1 had explained. Vorthak decision-making processes during their planning sessions. The shapeshifter had become an unexpected ally, helping human forces understand how his people would react to the impossible. They will be paralyzed by confusion, he had predicted. Vorthak leadership cannot function when faced with scenarios their mathematical models cannot explain. Jin'ei had spent 3 months getting into position for this shot. While the Vorthak military was scattered across empty human worlds, a small force of humanity's most elite soldiers had infiltrated the Empire's core systems. The plan had worked better than anyone had dared hope. Vorthak Prime was defended by skeleton crews and training units. Their best soldiers were hundreds of light years away, staring at abandoned cities and wondering where the humans had gone. Communication array locked, Jin'ei reported, ready to begin the demonstration. This shot would start humanity's counterattack. When the communication array exploded, Vorthak fleet commanders across the galaxy would suddenly find themselves cut off from central command. They would have to make decisions without the calculated precision their species relied upon. But more than that, it would announce to the Vorthak Empire that humans had done the impossible. They had turned the enemy's greatest strength into their greatest weakness. "All teams report ready," came Commander Somin's voice through the tactical channel. "Jinne, you have authorization to begin Operation Ghost Dance." Jinne smiled at the operation name. It had been Hyunwoo's suggestion, based on an old Earth legend about spirits who could not be defeated because they were already dead. The Vorthak had killed 17 human colonies only to discover they had been fighting ghosts. She steadied her breathing and settled her crosshairs on the communication array. 400 meters was an easy shot, but this one carried the weight of human civilization. Miss and the war might be lost. Hit, and humanity would prove that impossible and improbable were very different things. For every human who learned to survive the impossible, she whispered, and squeezed the trigger. The communication array exploded in a brilliant shower of sparks and crystal fragments. Across the galaxy, Vorthak fleets suddenly found themselves isolated, commanded by officers who had never learned to adapt or improvise. Alarms began wailing throughout the Imperial complex. Jinai was already moving to her next position, where 16 more targets waited. Each shot would cut another connection between the Vorthak command structure and their scattered forces. Through her communication device, she could hear reports from other human teams. The military academy was under attack. The strategic planning centers were being systematically destroyed. The Imperial archives containing centuries of tactical doctrine were burning. "Second target acquired," she reported, settling into a new firing position. "Strategic Coordination Center, range 300 meters. "Confirmed," Hyunwoo replied. "Multiple hostiles moving to intercept. You have maybe 2 minutes before they reach your position." Jinne put her second shot through the Coordination Center's primary processing unit. The explosion sent Vorthak security forces scrambling in all directions, but they were responding to attacks they could not understand. Human warfare had always confused them. But this was beyond confusion. This was a systematic dismantling of everything that made their empire function, carried out by enemies who had appeared from nowhere and struck without warning. "Third target," Jinne called, moving again. "Fleet Command Relay, range 500 meters. The shot destroyed the relay in a cascade of electrical fire. Somewhere in space, Vorthak admirals were discovering that their carefully coordinated final calculation had become a nightmare of isolated units and conflicting orders. As she moved toward her fourth target, Jinne could see Vorthak soldiers running through the crystal forests. They were searching for her, but they were looking for a logical enemy who would establish defensive positions and fight predictably. Instead, they found a ghost who struck without warning and vanished like smoke. "Jinne," Commander Somin's voice crackled through the communication channel. "Earth Command reports Vorthak fleets are breaking formation around the evacuated colonies. Some are attempting to return to defend their core worlds." "How long until they arrive?" Jinne asked, lining up her shot on the fourth target. "Minimum 2 weeks at their fastest hyperspace speeds." Jinne smiled and pulled the trigger. The Fleet Command Center exploded, cutting off the last direct communication link between Vorthak, Prime, and their scattered forces. "Then, we have 2 weeks to teach them why humans are the most dangerous species in the galaxy." Over the next 6 hours, Jinne and the other human strike teams systematically destroyed every major command and control facility on Vorthak Prime. They moved like ghosts through the crystal forests, striking targets and vanishing before security forces could respond. By the time Vorthak reinforcements began arriving from the empty colonies, they found their homeworld's command structure in ruins and their government in complete chaos. Ships arrived without orders, commanders made contradictory decisions, and the perfect mathematical precision of the Vorthak military machine collapsed into confusion. The war would continue for another year, but historians would mark this day as the turning point, the day humanity proved that sometimes the best response to perfect calculation was perfect unpredictability. Jinne completed her 16th shot as the sun set over Vorthak Prime. The Imperial complex was dark now, its communication systems destroyed and its leadership scattered. In the distance, she could see Vorthak ships arriving to find their perfectly planned empire in ruins. "Mission accomplished," she reported to Commander Somin. "All primary targets destroyed. The Vorthak command structure is completely severed. Outstanding work, Jinne. All teams report successful completion of objectives. Begin extraction procedures." As she prepared to leave her final firing position, Janae took one last look at the darkened Imperial complex. The Vorthak had learned what every predator on ancient Earth had eventually discovered. Humans were most dangerous not when they were cornered, but when they were given time to think creatively about survival. The evacuation of 17 worlds had given them exactly that time. 3 days later, Janae stood in the briefing room aboard the human command ship, watching holographic displays show the collapse of Vorthak resistance across multiple star systems. Without central coordination, their forces were being defeated piecemeal by human units that fought without predictable patterns. K1, the shapeshifter who had become humanity's most valuable intelligence asset, studied the displays with something approaching awe. "I have a question," he said finally. "Your species abandoned 17 worlds to capture one. By any logical calculation, this should have been a devastating loss." Ginny looked at the tactical displays showing human forces advancing on dozens of Vorthak positions. Logic said we could not evacuate 53 million people in 6 weeks. Logic said we could not coordinate simultaneous strikes across the Vorthak Empire. Logic said we could not win a war against a superior enemy. But you did all of these things. Because we stopped trying to be logical and started being human. Hyunwoo joined them at the display table. "The difference is that you calculated the probability of success and concluded it could not be done. We calculated the same probability and decided to try anyway." The briefing room buzzed with tension as Commander So-min activated the holographic projector. 3-dimensional images filled the air above the conference table, showing star maps and troop movements across 17 human colonies. The scale of what they were seeing made everyone in the room fall silent. Janae sat at the table with her arm in a medical sling, studying the tactical displays. Beside her, Hyunwoo was comparing the alien intelligence data with their own reconnaissance reports. "The numbers did not look good for humanity. This is what we found in the captured Vorthak communication devices," So-min explained to the assembled officers. "They call it the final calculation. A coordinated strike on 17 human colony worlds, timed to eliminate our ability to wage interstellar war." Captain Kehoe pointed to specific locations on the star map. "Each target world has been analyzed down to the smallest detail. Population centers, military installations, resource production facilities. They have calculated exactly how many ships and soldiers they need to capture each world." Jinae studied the holographic displays more carefully. The attack plan was incredibly detailed and perfectly organized. Every variable had been considered, every contingency planned for. It was exactly the kind of logical, efficient warfare the Vorthak Empire preferred. "When do they plan to begin the assault?" asked Major Taeho, the Colonial Defense Coordinator. "In 6 weeks," So-min replied. "Simultaneous attacks across all 17 worlds. They estimate complete victory within 72 hours. The room fell quiet again. 17 colonies represented nearly half of human space. Losing them would cripple humanity's ability to continue the war. The Vorthak had designed their final calculation to end human resistance in a single devastating blow. "Their mathematics are correct," admitted Colonel Yoon Seo, the strategic planning chief. "We cannot defend 17 worlds against concentrated Vorthak fleets. We lack the ships and soldiers necessary for such a widespread defense." Janae continued studying the tactical displays, her mind working through possibilities. The Vorthak plan was brilliant in its completeness. They had accounted for human defensive capabilities, response times, even psychological factors like civilian panic. But there was something about the plan that bothered her. Something too perfect, too logical for its own good. "They have made an assumption," she said finally. "What kind of assumption?" So-min asked. "They have assumed we will respond logically. Look at their calculations. They predict we will spread our forces thin trying to defend all 17 worlds. They expect us to fight a defensive war according to standard military doctrine." Hyunwoo looked up from his data analysis. "But humans do not fight according to standard military doctrine." "Exactly." Jinae stood up and moved to the holographic display. "What if we do not defend these worlds at all?" The suggestion sent shockwaves through the room. Major Taeho looked horrified. "Jinae, those colonies contain over 50 million civilians. We cannot abandon them to alien occupation." "I did not say abandon them. I said do not defend them." She manipulated the holographic controls, highlighting different sections of the star map. What if we evacuate the populations and let the Vorthak capture empty worlds? Evacuate 50 million people in 6 weeks, Colonel Yunseo said skeptically. That is impossible. Improbable, Janae corrected. There is a difference. Commander So Min was studying the star map with new interest. Continue your analysis, Janae. The Vorthak are concentrating their entire military force for this operation. Every major fleet, every elite unit, every command ship. They are betting everything on one decisive battle. She highlighted the Vorthak home systems on the display, which means their core worlds will be defended by minimal forces. Skeleton crews, training units, support personnel. The implications began to dawn on the other officers. Captain Kehoe was the first to speak. You are suggesting we abandon the colonies and attack their homeworld instead. While their military is scattered across 17 empty star systems, wondering where 50 million humans disappeared to, Hyunwoo added, understanding Jinae's thinking. It would require convincing the Colonial Council to evacuate 17 worlds based on captured enemy intelligence, Somin said thoughtfully. And it would mean gambling the survival of human civilization on our ability to strike at the heart of the Vorthak Empire. The alternative is fighting a defensive war we cannot win, Jinae replied. The Vorthak have calculated that scenario perfectly. We lose in 72 hours. Major Taeho was still struggling with the concept, but the logistics of evacuating 50 million people are challenging but not impossible, Colonel Yunseo interrupted, her strategic mind already working through the details. If we use every transport ship in human space, strip the military of all non-essential vessels, convert cargo haulers to passenger duty, it would leave us with no reserves. No backup plans, Captain Kehoe pointed out. Good, Janae said. Backup plans are logical. The Vorthak expect us to have backup plans. They have calculated for backup plans. She turned to face the assembled officers. This is what I learned from fighting their infiltrators. They study our capabilities, our psychology, our standard responses, but they cannot predict chaos. They cannot calculate what happens when humans choose the impossible option. Commander Somin was quiet for several minutes, studying the tactical displays and considering the implications. Finally, she spoke. Jinae, you are asking me to recommend that humanity bet everything on a single desperate gamble. I am asking you to recommend that humanity do what humans do best, adapt faster than our enemies can calculate. And if we are wrong, if the Vorthak have anticipated this possibility, Jinae smiled, the same expression she wore before making impossible shots, then we lose spectacularly instead of predictably. But I would rather fail attempting something impossible than succeed at being logical. Yunwoo stood up to support his partner. Commander, we have been fighting this war by their rules, defending when they attack, responding to their initiatives, playing catch-up with their strategies. Maybe it is time to make them play by our rules. Human rules, Somin said thoughtfully. No rules at all, Janae corrected. Pure chaos. The one thing their mathematical models cannot predict or counter. The room fell silent as the officers considered the proposal. Evacuate 17 worlds, abandon half of human space, and launch everything they had at the Vorthak homeworld, while the enemy fleet was scattered across empty colonies. It was insane. It was illogical. It violated every principle of military strategy. It was perfectly human. Major Taeho was the first to speak. The civilian evacuations would need to begin immediately. We would have to move people without telling them why, to prevent panic and security leaks. The fleet movements would have to appear routine until the last moment, added Colonel Yunseo. Any unusual activity might alert Vorthak infiltrators. Captain Kehoe nodded slowly. We would need to maintain normal communications and activities on all 17 worlds until the moment of evacuation. Make it look like business as usual. Commander So-min looked around the table at her officers. Each one was already thinking through the logistics of the most ambitious military operation in human history. The impossible gamble that might save their species or destroy it completely. I need to contact Earth Command, she decided. This decision is above my authorization level. Commander, Jinae said as the meeting began to break up. There is one more thing. The shapeshifter, K1. He has been observing human behavior for years. His insights might be valuable for planning this operation. You want to trust our most desperate plan to advice from an enemy prisoner. I want to use every advantage we have, including the enemy's own knowledge of their weaknesses. So Min considered this. Very well, but any conversation with the prisoner will be recorded and analyzed by intelligence specialists. As the officers filed out of the briefing room, Hyunwoo stayed behind with Jin-A. You realize you are betting the future of human civilization on our ability to outthink an entire galactic empire. No, she replied, checking her rifle's settings out of habit. I am betting it on our ability to be human when they expect us to be logical. And if the Vorthak have learned to predict human unpredictability. Jin-A looked at the holographic star map, still showing 17 worlds that might soon be empty of human life. Then we find a new way to be unpredictable. That is what humans do. We adapt. Outside the briefing room, alarms began to sound as Commander So-Min initiated emergency communications with Earth Command. The most desperate gamble in human history was about to begin. And somewhere in the medical facility, a Vorthak shapeshifter sat in energy restraints, wondering if he had underestimated human capabilities once again.